Kevin and Steve, founders of Bombers and Sleeves, a clothing and lifestyle brand dedicated to artists, writers, musicians, anyone currently on the creative path, or anyone looking to start a creative journey of their own. Our goal with this company and our BombCast is to encourage you to win the internal war of your creative pursuit. And we sum that up in 3 words, and those 3 words are bomb your boundaries. Now, what does that mean? Well, let's think about it for a second. What has more concentrated, focused, explosive energy than a bomb? Not that much fucking else. And so we use that as a metaphor to say if you want to make your creative vision come through, make your dreams come true, you got to get intense, focused, and explosive. And so with this podcast, we bring on guests that embody that bomb your boundary motto. And now you know what that means. It's the slogan for the whole company, so you're going to hear it throughout the podcast. You're going to see it on our Instagram page. If you go to our website, it's blasted all over that too. So now you're in the know. You get it. I'm going to hand it over to Steve. We have an amazing guest in the studio today. I'm going to let him introduce her.
Yo, what's up, everybody? Okay, so it is a honor to deliver our next guest to you here in the studio. She, and that is, yes, she, you are the first lady
All right.
of BombCast history. So she is by far one of my favorite country acts here in Nashville, Tennessee. I definitely have the privilege of working with this person, and I'll just never forget the first time we sat in a room together and you opened up your mouth and sang. I completely melted in my chair.
Thank you.
And I knew that, wow, we were going to get something special, and we have been. And I think, just part of why we make such special and magical music is because her voice is like none other. It is very effective. It's very captivating and just simply unique. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is our honor to introduce to you First Lady of BombCast history, the wonderful, the talented Miss Nora Collins.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. This is my first podcast.
That's exciting.
So this is a pretty big deal for me.
Okay. So we're bombing some boundaries here.
We sure are.
We are bombing some boundaries.
Yeah.
That's great. We're just right out of the gate. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, so Nora, I've heard nothing but great things about you from Steve. Every time he talks about you, he's like, man, I believe in Nora Collins.
That's
Nora
awesome.
Collins this,
Thank
Nora
you.
Collins that. It's awesome. So I, unfortunately, have not had a chance to see you live yet, but that is on my bucket list for sure. So I'm excited. I have, however, been able to do some research on you. This is the first time that we met in person, but, I read the bio that's on your website. And so you're originally from Milwaukie, racked up a bunch of great singing awards from there. So let's go ahead and slow it down.
Sure.
And kind of talk about, your early life and what got you into music at first, maybe your first experience with music, like what that was like and what really turned you on to it.
Yeah. Well, let's see where to start. I always loved to sing. I mean, my mom said, basically that I could sing before I talk.
Oh, wow.
So, it's funny. My mom, she kept a baby book for me and my sister. And I guess I wrote my first song when I was like 2 years old.
Whoa.
But it was obviously nothing special, but I guess I had warts on my feet. And so I made up a little wart song.
Nice.
And so Mom wrote down the lyrics to my sweet little first song called The Wart Song. A very, very proud moment.
Do you remember any of the lyrics to
No,
this?
unfortunately I don't, but I bet I could have my mom dig it up and
Yes.
I could send it to you. Maybe I'll revise it and spruce it up, 2019 version.
Okay.
Yeah,
Next
that's amazing.
BombCast, I want to perform into that.
Okay, deal.
Well, hey, it's something impactful that was going on that was
It was
taking you out of,
exactly.
You
Yeah,
had
that
to get
was
it out. That's pretty crazy.
Emotionally, it was a big thing for me at the age of 2 years old.
Yeah.
But as a kid, I was exposed to a lot of different music. My parents listened to all genres, so I wasn't just raised in a country music household or strictly pop or rock. I listened to everything. And actually, my first concert was Celine Dion.
Nice.
I was obsessed with the song from Titanic,
Mm-hmm.
My Heart Will Go On, and I would sing it everywhere that I went, and I called it the Titanic song. So Celine Dion came to Milwaukie, and my parents took me, and I fell asleep during the concert, and they had to wake me up for that song.
Oh, man.
So that was, it's pretty crazy to say that my first concert, I was 3 years old, slept through it, and it was
Celine.
someone as iconic as Celine Dion.
The Queen.
Yes.
Wow.
Do you remember that moment though when you were woken up for it? That had to be a big
No,
deal.
you know, I feel like, first of all, I feel like I have a terrible memory, and I'm not really sure what my earliest memory is. Actually, I think I do.
Okay.
Not fourth grade. Whoa. No.
4 days ago.
No. My memory is that bad. But no, I was 4 years old. My best friend at the time was my neighbor, Michael Hafmeyer, and I had the biggest crush on him. And we played outside all the time together. He was the boy across the street. We were going to play golf. And he hit me in the head with a golf club on the backswing.
Wow.
Because I wasn't paying attention. And I remember him telling me to move. And for some reason, my little 4-year-old head told me, move closer.
Yeah.
And he backswung and I cracked my head open.
Oh man. I'm seeing a correlation to the memory problems, maybe.
Maybe
There
that's
you
it.
go.
You know, I did crack my head open twice as a young child, 2 and then 4. So
my
maybe that
gosh.
explains it.
Wow. Well, you're doing great.
Thank you so much.
That's awesome.
And your names are.
Yeah, right.
And what day is it?
That's awesome. Okay, so you didn't grow up with really strict genres in the house. It was kind of open to a bunch of different things.
Yeah, I listened to
Yeah.
everything. My dad is a big Elton John fan, so
Nice.
you know a lot of those songs. I think my next concert after Celine Dion was either Shania Twain or the Backstreet Boys.
Nice.
Man.
So I loved everything. But Shania was my introduction to country music.
Okay, cool. It said on your bio that I read that so you were trying to take like formal singing lessons, but they couldn't get the twang out. Did that come from like your introduction to Shania, or do you just naturally kind of sing with more of like that type of twang to it?
You know, I think I just naturally had a twang. I started taking vocal lessons in 4th grade. I started singing in the church choir, and we would do like musicals, and I had a solo in the first musical that we did about Noah's Ark. And our music director at church pulled my parents aside after the musical and was like, hey, she's got something that might be worth developing. Like, here's a vocal coach that if she enjoys singing, I think you should take her too. And so my parents started taking me and my sister. My sister has a beautiful voice and played the flute, and very talented. And also loved musical theater. I was kind of a musical theater kid. So we went to Mrs. White in Franklin, Wisconsin. And she was a musical theater, classical vocal trainer. So I just remember going in and we could bring her songs that we wanted to perform, and we would just kind of master them, you know, and she would help us warm up and work on our flexibility of our voice and everything. And I just remember her being like, man, that twang is not going anywhere, so I guess we're just going to have to roll with it. So then I started bringing in country songs for her to help me develop my own little thing. But I didn't know then that I was like, country music is my thing and I'm going to be a country singer. Like, that was not even a thought in my mind. I just loved to sing, and I don't even think I recognized the fact that I had a twang. Like, she said that I did, but I was like, I don't hear it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it wasn't until later on when I was in high school that I realized I had a country thing to me. Like, I think, you know, I don't even really know when that moment was, because when I did my first CD, so I was 14 years old, and it was the summer I was going into high school. I was super, super bored. I had an old guitar hanging out in my room from also 4th grade because I wanted to sing.
Yep.
And I wanted to be able to, you know, accompany myself.
Sure.
So my parents signed me up for guitar lessons. Hated it.
Just because of the mechanic, like it was so boring.
Well, because I didn't want to play scales.
I got you. Yeah,
I don't
Ready to
care
rock,
what
man.
note I'm
Yeah.
playing. Like, I just want to be able to play and sing. And this guy wanted to teach me the basics, the scales, and I just was so uninterested.
Boring.
Didn't want to practice. So it just sat in the corner of my room for a long time until I was going into high school. And that summer, I was just so bored that I picked it up and I knew 4 chords and I wrote my first song. And it was just so much fun that I ended up writing 9 other songs. And before I like gained enough courage to be like, hey Mom, I wrote some songs. Can I play them for you?
Nice.
And so she came into my room and I was like, you can't look at me though. So she sat on the ground, with her head in her knees, and I just sat on my bed and I played her the songs, and she was impressed, and she was like, you should play these for Dad when he comes home from work. So I did that, and my dad was like, whoa, these have structure and they make sense, like, good for you.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
It's a big compliment.
it is. Well, and like for someone who's like, I mean, it is so scary to share something that you've created that you don't know if it's good. You just know that you like it. And you did it by yourself. No one helped you.
Yeah.
And just to play that for someone. And my parents' opinion has always been, has always meant so much to me that like their approval is everything. And so for them to say like, hey, these are good, like meant the world to me. And my uncle had graduated from college with a music minor and a great piano player. And he has a home studio. And so my mom was like, we should take you out to Uncle Doug's and see if he'll, record these for you, just a guitar vocal, so you can have these to look back on someday, because that'll be so fun for you, when you're 30, to look back on what you did when you were 14.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we did, and my uncle was so impressed. He was like, Nora, these are good. So he added piano to them, and he had a friend of his help him with like how to use Pro Tools and everything. And then my other uncle came in and played electric guitar on it. And then my other uncle got jealous that he wasn't involved, so he came in and played a shaker egg.
Nice.
Like, so it pretty funny.
You need the egg.
Yeah,
guy.
I mean, it's necessary, right?
Yeah.
And another uncle or an aunt of mine did the initial album art for the first CD.
Wow.
But what I was getting at was that like that CD to me was not country music. I didn't know what genre it was. It was just songs that I wrote that I was saying, that were me, and that I came from my heart. And listening back to them too, like I still don't think they're country.
Right.
I don't know what they are. I guess maybe my dad thought they were country. I don't know. But my dad found a contest with CMT around that time that I released this first CD, and the contest was CMT Music City Madness. And so there was 64, or first you had to make the top 64 out of everyone, and then I ended up making it to the top 16 in the nation. And because of that, I had a lot of local press, and because of the local press, someone from NSAI, the Milwaukie chapter, came to one of my shows, which at the time all I was playing was Potbelly Sandwich Works, a sandwich shop in
Sounds amazing.
my
That's awesome.
hometown. And so I would play there every Friday and Saturday night. There were 2 locations, so I would, on Saturday night I'd be at one and Friday night the other. But so she came and sought me out, and that's when I started learning about how to actually write songs.
Wow.
And yeah, I don't know. There's so many things to say about my journey early on that it's hard to like organize my thoughts about it. You know what I mean? Because it's
Sure,
like
no, take your time.
it's so sporadic of where my memories.
Well, let me ask you this: what, like, with that, the songs you recorded with like your uncle,
Yeah,
what were the things you were writing about at that time of your life? Like,
I was writing about things I had no clue about. I was
Right.
writing
As we all
about
do.
I was writing about relationships, and had only had one boyfriend. I had my first boyfriend in 8th grade, but was that really a
Right.
boyfriend?
yeah,
It's a person.
On paper.
We talked on AIM and
yeah,
texted. Went to see like a couple movies. Like
sure.
so.
Were you pulling from like Sorry to cut you off there.
No.
Were you pulling from like direct experiences that you had with that person, or was it like pulling a little bit from your experiences that you had together, but then also the like idealism that you've seen on like movies and things like that? Where we
I think you summed it up beautifully. I wish I could articulate like that.
Yeah, that's why he does most of the talking.
Thank God you're here.
Yeah.
My gosh.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I think I drew from the little bit that I knew, and then, yeah, you're right. Like movies, which I've always been a big fan of movies. It's one of my favorite things to do is watch movies and go to the movies. So I've always had a very idealistic image of what love should be.
Yeah.
And my parents have been married for 33 years, like, and my parents are so in love. Like, I've always just seen and held love in a high regard. So, yeah, that was beautifully said. Thank you for saying what I couldn't.
No, that's
Well, and I think even writers or artists do the same thing today. Like, you know, like just because, like, you know, a lot of times you could be in the happiest mood ever.
Yeah.
But you could go into that room on the row and write the saddest song.
Right.
Because you can tap into those places and you kind of, and maybe it is, for me, I think too, it's like I watch a lot of movies and I like to visually see and I like to paint in my mind like maybe what the video is going to look like or what maybe the heart is going through.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm the same way. And I think when I was younger too, it was the same thing. It's like you almost wanted to paint what maybe love should feel like to you.
Yes.
Even though you're in 8th grade and you're like, dude, I mean, come on, we're on MySpace and this isn't real,
I've
right?
never really been in love.
Right.
Yeah. I will say though, one of the first songs I wrote that was on the CD, which the CD was called Red Chuck Taylor's.
nice.
So there was a song there that I wrote about my first boyfriend after we broke up. It was called Dimples Filled with Lies. Oh, maybe that was my second CD. It was my second CD. It was
Wow,
called
that's wow.
Dimples Filled with Lies. And the chorus started, or maybe I'm confusing my own songs. This is so long ago. But there was a song that the chorus started, "You're not that good looking, you're a jerk. Yeah, I hate your guts. You make fun of people who don't care for you that much." I forget how the rest of it goes. But I have friends from high school that'll still bring up like those old songs and request them, and it's just so funny. And there's a radio station back home, our big competing radio station, WMIL. They have been a big supporter of me. I was the first artist they ever played on their show called Homemade Jams, which is where they play local musicians. I was the first ever artist, and it was Red Chuck Taylor's that they played.
So let's talk about Homemade Jams. I mean, that was your first time you ever performed on the radio?
Yeah.
Was it live? No, they played the CD.
It's not a live show, but they do it every Sunday night at 10 o'clock. And
were y'all like listening like at home and
yes,
like, oh God, did you have the family over?
Me and my parents. It was just me and my parents. We were in the family room, and my dad used to record every show that I was on, like TV and radio stuff. So
on the VHS.
Yep. And so he has something set up now, like with the radio or like the system he has set up, he can record the radio.
Nice.
And so he had it all set up to record, and I cried for sure, but I pretended like I didn't because, you know, I was cool.
Yeah, but that meant the world to you.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And I remember where I was going. So we were talking about how like country music, like how did that happen? I'm from Wisconsin, and these first songs that I wrote to me weren't country, but then because I didn't know what they were, I was just writing for me, and then I entered one of the first songs that I wrote called "Don't Slow Down" to the CMT Music City Madness contest, made the top 16 in the nation. And that gave me a lot of local press, and the Milwaukie director of the NSAI group came to one of my shows and introduced me to the songwriting community and told me about Nashville and that's the place I needed to go. And so I think at that point, and having the success that I did in that competition, it took my hobby and made it into something that I thought I could pursue, not necessarily as a career, but that I loved to play, and I loved to sing, and I liked sharing that with people. And so NSAI, and her name is Lisa Medill, who was the coordinator of the Milwaukie chapter, is really what started my journey in country music, like where it clicked for me. That like I'm a songwriter and country music tells stories, and that's what I want to do. I want to tell stories.
And for those of you
Yeah.
who don't know what NSAI is, but it's Nashville Songwriting Association International, right?
Yes.
So its main hub is here in Nashville, but it's all over the place.
Right.
And they help you kind of with your songwriting and like meet connections and stuff.
And there's like lots of great opportunities with NSAI, especially for beginners. There's workshops, and there's with your membership you can send in 12 songs a year and have a professional songwriter critique it and give you advice. So
really good company.
Absolutely. And it was something that I definitely feel like I took great advantage of when I was first starting out. Yeah, it was a big thing for me.
Yeah, and then the connections you made through that have obviously continued to help you out today, right?
I mean, I met my friend Kevin Kirk through that songwriters group, and he and his wife ended up moving to Nashville. I don't know how long ago now, but before I moved here, they were living here, and they would let me stay with them every time I came down to Nashville. And
Nice.
I mean, that helps so much as a young kid trying to, come here and make connections and do the thing. It's an expensive trip, and
Yeah.
We talk about that a lot on the
hotels,
podcast, Nora's just saying it. I mean, it's very important. Relationships are very important, and connections and people you meet along the way, because it's really expensive to stay here in Nashville, especially today.
it's expensive to live here.
It's expensive to breathe here.
It really is. I think I'm being charged 50 cents a second.
Seriously, I'm already broke.
That's expensive. Yeah, no, connections are relationships, I should say, are everything. I didn't realize that until a couple years ago, because I always thought, the most talented and is going to win. The best and the nicest people are going to win. And since moving here, not that wonderful people don't thrive and super talented people don't have success, but I've just, when you're in it every day, you kind of see the behind the curtain. And that's been a little bit of my eyes have been opened, and it's a little disheartening, but I still believe that if you work really hard and you're nice to people, I mean, nothing bad is going to happen to you.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah. Would you mind going kind of further down that? I mean, you don't have to name names or like specific events, but like what exactly have you seen maybe in more details that was like
that behind
maybe
the
there was
curtain.
A big moment where you're like, wow, okay, there's definitely more politics in this than I thought.
I think I just realized, like, after I moved here, that it's just like the music industry back home. You know what I mean? Like, politics are absolutely 100% involved. It is, people like to help their friends, and that's why relationships are everything, because it is who you know. Talent helps, and it is important to be able to back yourself up with, your voice or your guitar or whatever it is that you're pursuing, your songwriting. But at the end of the day, like, I've come to realize it's the best songs don't win. Like, I'm a songwriter. I mean, I have a publishing and an artist development deal, and I'm 100% pursuing the artist thing. But I'm also writing songs and would love to have a major label artist record a song of mine.
And you're a fantastic songwriter. There's no doubt about that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But I'm not friends with any of those artists. And those artists, typically, they cut either the big name songs from the big name writers, or they're cutting songs that their friends wrote, because who doesn't want to help their friend out?
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think talent gets you in the door, but relationships get you through the kitchen.
Yeah.
And you're right. I mean, sometimes
I like that. Wait, quote.
Chew on that one.
Oh, yes.
But no, I totally agree with you. And the thing is, too, it's like, that's where the word you said, relationships, it's such a big thing. So I think people that, people that are in Nashville, the sooner you kind of discover that and realize that, you're right. You can be wonderful. You can be a nice person, and that's awesome. And you should be. You should be, because
100%.
And you want to know why you should be? Because you're going to have more relationships that way.
Yeah.
You can't be a shitbag and be the talented,
right.
the most talented person. It just won't work for you. So really,
Yeah, nor can you be the guy who's obviously trying to be friends with people in quote like celebrity
Right.
status positions.
Right.
You know,
Right.
so how do you balance like being your authentic self, but then
Right.
also like really wanting to develop a friendship with someone in that position?
Well, and that's the thing, like
Yeah.
that's so difficult to do. And I feel like for anyone listening to this who isn't in this community yet, like it is daunting to try and build those relationships. Because I know for me, someone who is still trying to build on relationships and meet new people and the right people, like it is so scary to put yourself out there and to put yourself in situations where you don't know anyone, or you see someone that you really admire and you want to talk to them, but you don't know how to go about it the right way because you don't want to come on like a fangirl, or like you're just talking to them because you want something out of them, or like you just want to write with someone, and so you're like, hey, we should write sometime. Like people hate that.
Yeah.
Like I don't feel like I do very well in social situations. I feel like I have social anxiety where I just get very nervous about being around people that I know carry a lot of weight, and that they have a lot of say and stuff that mean a lot to me. So, yeah, I don't know. I need advice on that. That's something I need advice on, is how to be cool in those situations and not psych yourself out.
Yeah.
Or burn a bridge.
Totally.
know?
Yeah. It might actually, I just listened to you talk about that, because I completely get where you're coming from. I mean, even us with this business, I mean, there will be a time where we come around someone who is in that type of position. And yeah, it's daunting too, because we don't want to come off like we're trying to get anything out of them.
Right.
I guess maybe like, if you had to imagine like reverse engineering that, like you're the person that carries a lot of weight, and someone who is in your position now came up to you, I guess what do you think you would want to hear from them?
I've had young artists come up to me, like from back home, or email me or DM me on Instagram and ask for advice and stuff, and I always feel funny about it, because I'm like, I still have such a long way to go with where I view, success to be at. Not that I don't think I'm successful. I get to do this for a living. So like, what a blessing, but there's just so much more that I want to do. So I don't feel like I've accomplished enough for someone to ask me like, how do you do it? And how do I get to where you're at? And so I don't know. It's just, I feel like I always give them the same advice that other people gave me, which is like, play out everywhere and anywhere you can. Write with anyone who will write with you. Write every day, even when you don't feel like it. Even if it's just your train of thought. Like, just write down anything.
Personally, for me, like, I think what it also has to do with is like being true to yourself. When you do go to these parties and stuff, it's important to be you. And if you are going to be you, be very comfortable with you and be very confident about who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
definitely.
also a struggle though too. How do you become, like, I feel like, I just turned 25. I feel like I know pretty much who I am, but to be completely honest, I struggle with feeling secure with who I am, and that I'm enough, and that I am, worthy of being in the rooms that I get to be in.
I think thankfully though, a lot of celebrities and a lot of any creative type person, the two of us definitely struggle with that. Well, I won't put words in your mouth. I for sure struggle with that. But I think a lot of the people that you look up to probably struggle with that too. And what I was thinking when you were saying that back is like, we're all like, the best friendships have come out of people that we approach just as peers, outside of vocational success, but just as like spiritual human success. Like you can cultivate that within yourself and meet someone on that same level there too. Because what's also crazy that I was hearing when you were saying that is like, you don't feel like you've reached the level of success that you're capable of or wanting to get to. I can guarantee you that those people that you look up to feel the exact same way. There's always like that next level above that, because when we're all in this room trying to be the best that we can be, that's like a moving target, right? Because once you hit that first best, then your best is not that best anymore. You got to shoot for a higher best, and higher and higher and higher, right? So there comes a point where coming to that place of self-acceptance, of bringing that to any situation, I think is powerful. But
absolutely.
I was always weird with that too. Like when we came out with the How It Feels EP.
Yeah.
And I was young. I think it was 25 when we did that, 25, 26.
Yeah, we were 25, so that's crazy.
Yeah, and we would get...
Dang.
I know.
It is a big turning point.
It's crazy though, but I used to get, emails and people calling like, man, like, dude, so proud of you. Like, I mean, you're doing it, bro. You're really doing it. And in your mind, you're like, that's cool, thanks.
Yeah.
But you're like, I'm nowhere near where I want to be.
Right.
So like, that's cool, but like, I want you to come at me like this when I'm on the top of the mountain. I think that's just normal. I think that's normal. But I will say this, there is something that's fantastic just about doing it. Because you know what? You do get to wake up every day and write songs and perform. And you have a publishing deal, which is big for someone who's like, I guess who doesn't and doesn't even have the connections to do that. So there is success in your story. There's a lot of success in your story, but it's just very humanistic of you to to say, yeah, but I'm not there yet. Well, that's okay because we know where you want to go,
right.
And you will get there. And when what Kev said, once you get there, then that ain't gonna be good enough anymore.
Right.
Then you want to go higher, and that's great.
Yeah.
Want more, dream bigger then.
Right.
I love that. That's the beautiful thing about life.
Yeah. Well, and I will say too, in the same breath, like, Steve, you are someone that has taught me in this last year about, dreaming big and putting it out into the universe. And when you ask for things and you believe that you can have them or that you already have them, it comes to you. Like, well, it doesn't come to you. You have to work your butt off. But like, the power of positive thinking is everything.
Yeah. And coupled with like the power of expectancy and all that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't live every day and being like, man, I wish or I want or maybe.
Right.
Eliminate that and say, this can happen. And as soon as you start saying that.
And it's going to.
And it's going to happen. And Kevin and I talk about this all the time, knowing the end of the movie. Like we always say, what's the end of the movie look like for you? And some people are like, yeah, I just want to be successful, have a couple of kids, and that's fine.
Yeah.
And some people are so blueprinted where it's like, yeah, I'm going to have this car. It's going to be this color. It's going to have this type of engine. It's going to be at this house. I already know the address. It's going to have this overlooking. Like, paint it for me, man. And that's a beautiful thing. That's not greedy. That's not being cocky. That's just, I think that's very important for your heart and your mind, because you start thinking of those things, the closer they will come to you. Because when you believe, you know what happens? You usually get. You put in the work, you'll get it.
I love that.
So that's a good segue right there. What does that end goal look like for you, and where is that in comparison to where you are currently?
It's interesting. I've when he was saying that, immediately, like, the vision that came into my head was just like a house on the water, and I was in a rocking chair with what I hope was my husband, and there were kids around, which I'm viewing end game, like before I pass away.
Yeah,
like,
clean it up.
So like grandkids and stuff. So I mean, family is so important to me, and like I said, love is, what we all want. We all want to be loved, and so more than anything, I think that's what I want. Is I want a family, but dream wise, like with my music and stuff, I mean, I want it all. I want the record deal, even though, that isn't necessarily crucial anymore in today's world with music, with being able to do it independently. And some people have made amazing careers out of that. But for me personally, I want the major label deal. I mean, I feel like I have steps that I want. So it's getting the record deal, then it's getting to go on a major tour as that first opener of 3 acts, and then moving up to the second opener, and then getting to headline my own tour. More than anything, like what I love being able to write an amazing song that comes from the heart and resonates with people. But the thing that I've come to realize that I just love more than all of that is being able to go up on that stage and play it. Like, that is when I'm my happiest. Like, my anxiety goes away when I'm on stage and I'm playing. And I don't know if it's just because I get to focus on other things, and it's just about making sure the crowd's having a good time. But also too, I think it's you get to see the impact that you make on people. Like as songwriters, you don't necessarily get to see your song affect someone. Like I was in Milwaukie last weekend, or 2 weekends ago now. I had a show at the Rave, and after my set, I would say maybe she was high school or early college. This girl came up to me and she was crying and she was shaking and she was just so excited to meet me. And she told me that my song Plain Jane just meant so much to her. And then later that night, I got a message on Instagram from her, and she told me how she has struggled with a neglectful family, an abusive brother. She's got 2 siblings that have autism, and she has 23 mental diagnoses and has been in and out of mental hospitals for the past 4 years, and has suffered with self-mutilation. And she found my song Plain Jane, and it helped her see how beautiful she was.
God,
so
wow. That's
a powerful thing. And that moment there, I mean, I will always remember that. And that just validated everything for me. It was because Plain Jane came from a personal space where I wasn't feeling good enough. I felt like, do I even have a chance in this industry? I just felt plain. I really felt like a plain Jane. And to know that my story, which is so different from hers, affected her in a way and helped her get better. Yeah. It let me know that what I have to say is worthwhile. Yeah. And that it does good.
What you have to say is important.
Yeah.
And you actually have something to say.
Yeah. So that was just a really special moment for me. And what's funny too, small world, her and I have the same birthday.
Oh,
of course.
Nice.
Of course.
Yeah.
Oh,
man, I heard you play that song. One thing that maybe our audience doesn't know, there's a very special guest singer on the recording of that song. And
there is.
You can tell them who that is.
Just like this guy who's never done anything in country music.
Right. Some hack.
You probably never heard of him. Vince Gill.
So first time I heard that song, I played it for my wife, and we were silent. I think we were just we looked at each other afterwards and we're like, wow. Then I saw you play it live at Analog at your release show or showcase. And it was great because, I remember you playing all the upbeat stuff and everyone's getting into it. But when you play that song, and I remember telling you this, it was just a magical moment. So when you're up on stage and you're performing that song, and I mean, obviously it's just you, there's this light on you, it's beautiful, it's perfect, no one's talking, everyone's just mesmerized by the power of the song and what you're actually saying. The lyrics are connecting, just physically connecting at that moment. What's that feeling like?
Plain Jane is a song that I always look forward to playing. I find myself still, I wrote that song 2.5 years ago.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And it is a song that, I remember at that release party, I had to hold back tears. I was really, it's a very real song to me. And especially in moments where I'm struggling with insecurity or my anxiety, it's a very emotional song to me. And it's hard for me to get through sometimes. But I love playing it for that reason, because I wrote that song as a pep talk to myself, and learning that it's doing that for other people, it makes it a highlight of my set for me, because, you never know what someone is going through. And meeting this sweet girl, I had no idea that she was going through all of that, and it was something she was probably too scared to tell me in person. And so she had enough courage to tell me in a direct message. And so it's just really powerful. And I've had someone else, one of my fans in Milwaukee who comes to a lot of my shows, his name is Mike, and very, very sweet guy. he came up and told me that Plain Jane inspired his weight loss journey, and he had lost 100 pounds.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
Look
so,
at that.
Cool.
The beautiful connection.
Genre, or gender spanning.
Yeah, it's really cool to see.
That's what it's about.
Absolutely. And that's just more than anything what I want to do with my music is make people feel like they are not alone and leave them feeling hopefully better about themselves and their life, and with hope, and maybe feeling inspired. But I just want to connect with people, and that's, I think, why I love actually getting to go out and play, because and then meeting the people after the show, because you just get to see all walks of life, and it's cool to see what resonates with people and to hear their stories.
That's why people love music. It's because you get an artist like yourself who, when you go up there and play a song like Plain Jane, that's very honest, that's very true. It's very vulnerable for you. You're exposing yourself. You're exposing your wounds to an audience or to the world. And that's why I think people gravitate towards music, because the guy that's trying to lose weight, or the girl that, was kind of self-mutilating, that has nothing to do with why you wrote the song. But they saw maybe that vulnerability in you and the way you deliver it so beautifully on stage. Then they're like, man, I'm connecting to this person. That's the power of great songwriting. I think that's the power of great music. But more importantly, that's the power of being a great artist, is delivering that message. And that's so cool. Like, I mean, I have no doubt. I mean, that's how you do it, man. That's
Thank
every
you.
time I see you, that's how you do it.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm just a fan. I'm just a fanboy. Okay, so you moved to Nashville. I like to ask a lot of our guests what that moment was like, because I remember when, and Kevin will tell you his story too, but it's like when you first see that skyline, and it's a beautiful sight. It's also a very intimidating sight, because you're like, wow, this is my life now. What was that moment like when you were driving down either I-65 or 440, and like you see the skyline and you're not going back home, and you're going to make Nashville your permanent residency, and you're going to do this professionally, or at least try to. What was that moment like?
That moment for me was, I felt ready for it. I had never lived anywhere else in my life. I was born and raised in one house in Brookfield, Wisconsin. I didn't go away to college. So I was ready to have a place of my own. But the reason I was ready to move here, and I didn't feel, I mean, I was nervous, absolutely. But I was ready because, so my story is a little different. Like, I didn't just move here because I wanted to be in Nashville and be a songwriter, and was going to, once I moved here, start trying. Like, before moving to Nashville, I played a lot of shows for a lot of years. I played over 200 shows a year, all stuff that I booked myself for the 5 years prior, before I had moved to Nashville. And wow. In that last year, I started taking monthly trips back and forth from Milwaukie to Nashville. And at the time, there was no direct flight, so I would drive 9.5 hours one way, stay with my buddy Kevin and his wife, and stay here for a week or two at a time. I would set up rights and meetings before I came for my trips. I'd make sure I had enough things to do that made the trip worthwhile. And I did that once a month for a year. And on my very first trip, I was fortunate enough to meet my now publisher. And he was kind enough to take a meeting with me through my friend Kevin. Kevin had met Clay Myers at a pitch to publisher kind of event. And he mentioned me and just said, I have a young friend from Milwaukee who's coming down to Nashville. Would you mind meeting with her? And he said, absolutely. So I emailed him and set it all up. And he had just started a company with Tony Harrell called MV2 Entertainment. And so we had our first meeting. It went great. And then from that point on, he made time to meet with me every trip that I came down, and started setting me up with writes, people to write with, and he got good feedback from them, and he liked the songs. So a year later, I got a verbal offer to sign with MV2 Entertainment for a publishing and artist development deal. And then I ended up signing the actual deal in March of 2016, and then moved in April. So for me, on a personal, so that's why I felt ready.
Yeah.
Because I had worked my butt off and already knew a handful of people here. So I didn't feel like I was coming in, cold and blind without knowing a soul. Like I at least had people I could reach out to and write with, or maybe go grab lunch with or something. So I didn't feel totally alone. And for me, that was necessary for me to make the move to Nashville because I was playing all those shows back home. I was making a pretty good living for myself doing that. And I knew financially I could not give that up unless I had something to move for. So I was going to continue taking my trips until I got something. And I think I always knew that I would. And I don't want to say that in a cocky way. I just, in my heart, I knew that this was where I was supposed to be. And somehow it was going to happen. But I personally could not make the move without the security of a publishing or artist development deal, which is what I ended up getting.
Right.
So the moment of actually moving down here was super validating. It was scary, though, because like I said, I had never moved in my entire life. I'd never been away from my parents or my family, and I don't have any family here in Tennessee. So it was scary. And because I didn't go away to college either, it was like, I didn't really have any of those moments where it was like I was away from them for a long period of time. But I also don't think I ever really had the opportunity to be homesick, because after I signed my deal and moved here, I already had a full summer of shows booked back home. So I had those commitments. So I moved here, was here for 2 months, and then went back home for pretty much the whole summer played shows, because that's where I have all those connections back home. I play a lot of shows there. So I still go home quite a bit. Not as much anymore. And not for as long as a full summer, but I go home enough that I don't, I miss my parents, of course, but I never went through that homesick kind of period, which I'm grateful for.
That's awesome. That's a lot more set up than a lot of us were. So.
Yeah.
Well, I was raised by a cost accountant who, like our vacations, we had itineraries. So,
oh, wow.
And my dad helped me with growing my business for Nora Collins music from the get-go. So, he helped me set up a website and an email, and he helped me book my shows in the very beginning. I was 14 when I started booking shows and playing in bars. So obviously he was very involved but he never did it on his own. We did it together. So I learned everything.
You learned a lot about the business side of that
right.
kind of thing.
And
wow.
not that my dad had ever done any of that, but he was obviously, he's like an adult and had more experiences than me and knew how to communicate with people. He knew what to ask for with compensation and lighting and whatever. So very, very grateful for him, and he taught me a lot on how to do all of those things. Also for just a little bit more of my backstory, what made me start taking my trips to Nashville. Well, technically I took my first trip to Nashville when I was 16 with my dad and the coordinator of the Milwaukie chapter of NSAI. She introduced me to Nashville, and we came down here a few times, and someone wanted to sign me to a development deal, but it kind of, it was a fishy kind of situation.
Yeah.
It wasn't right, and we got lawyers involved, and the lawyer was like, this is not a good situation for you.
Oh, yeah.
You need to not. And so then I went through a little period of feeling like Nashville was a terrible place. And so I didn't go to Nashville for a few years and pursued reality TV. I tried it out for American Idol. When I was 15, that was before my first trip to Nashville. They came to Milwaukee, which they had never done.
Oh.
And so I went and did that, and I made it to callbacks, but and then was waited for 13 hours and was the third last person they saw that day. I was 15, and then they told me I wasn't ready after hearing 15 seconds of me sing. which I wasn't.
Wait, let's talk about that.
Which
real
I
quick.
wasn't. I was 15 years old.
Okay, that's young.
But then, The Voice became a thing. And I ended up auditioning for The Voice, and I made it out to the blind auditions. I was 19 or 20 years old, and I think I was 19 the first time I did it. And it was season 6, and so I refer to The Voice as my college experience because we were sequestered out in a 5-star hotel for a month, and I had vocal lessons from an amazing vocal coach, and we did interviews and hair and makeup every day, and I was with 100 other people who loved to sing like me, and so we had just developed amazing friendships, and when those are the only people you get to see for a month, you get pretty close. But so I went out for season 6, and I didn't actually get to audition in front of the coaches because the teams filled up before I got to go. So I was pretty devastated, and went home and, didn't know what to do. And then they invited me back for season 8. It was the same deal, sequestered for a month, got all the great, coaching and things like that. And I got to audition on day 1, and I didn't get any chairs to turn. And I was devastated.
Who was judging on season 8?
On season 8, it was Adam Levine, Pharrell Williams, Christina Aguilera, and Blake Shelton.
Not even Uncle Blake, huh?
Uncle Blake didn't turn. Uncle Blake,
mistake.
Yeah, everything happens for a reason, and so I didn't get any cheers to turn, and then and again, completely devastated, and about maybe a month later, the producer of The Voice ended up being the producer for what was supposed to be the last season of American Idol. And he always really liked me. So he invited me and my parents to come out to Denver for the auditions. And I just got to go straight in front of the judges, because there's what people don't know who haven't experienced auditioning for these shows is that there are way more auditions before you get to actually sing in front of the celebrities. So I just got to skip the other part and go straight in front of Harry Connick Jr., Keith Urban, and J-Lo. And
I love Harry.
And I was told Harry was the only one that said yes.
Oh,
so
good man.
I did not go to Hollywood. Yes, good man. And so again, at this point, I'm 20 years old, maybe 21. I forget what year it was. I thought my life was over.
Yeah. Sure.
What am I going to do? I need to go to college. Like, what else am I going to do? And it was at that point that my mom said, if this is something you want to pursue, you need to start taking trips to Nashville. And so at that point, I started taking those monthly trips by myself, and a year later ended up getting a deal and being able to move here and actually make a career out of it.
Wow. You know what? I mean, how many people do we know that are legit famous from American Idol or The Voice that have had longevity?
To me, the only two that have had longevity are Kelly Clarkson and Carrie Underwood.
Yeah, so those odds are super slim.
They are, but when you're from Wisconsin or wherever you're from, and you don't know anyone,
it's everything.
Sure, it's a huge deal.
You think that's
totally
the only way.
Yeah,
I heard the contracts they make you sign are pretty bogus, where they kind of stiff you down the road.
Absolutely, they're not great, but you also have to weigh you're nobody.
You get the platform.
And you want to be somebody.
Sure.
And this is your opportunity to do it. But there were definitely people that walked away from it. And good for them. But I also know that, especially with The Voice, like I said, it was my college experience. It didn't pan out the way I wanted it to. But it was one of the best experiences of my life, both times that I got to do it. And the people that I met, I'm still friends with some of them.
That's awesome.
I value that experience so much. It was hard in the moment, and because when you want something, you want it right now, and and where do you go from here? But it is something that really fueled my fire and got me here.
Yeah.
So
without those auditions and people saying no, you wouldn't be here with a deal.
Right. Well, and I learned a lot with like how to interview. Not that I'm a great interview, but like when you have that opportunity to do that in front of a camera with producers talking at you and who are intentionally trying to pull things out of you that cause emotion. Like, you grow a lot and you learn a lot. And I was at a very, I was at the age where it was an important lesson for me to learn, especially learning that you don't have to talk about things you don't want to talk about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because people try and pull things from you.
They want to make great TV.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was something that I learned too, was that they knew before I even set my foot on that stage if they were going to turn around or not. Granted, I know I did not perform well on that audition. Like, I was so nervous. I put my entire life on that one performance, and that was an unfair position to put myself in, but that's how much it mattered to me.
Yeah.
And so I was a nervous wreck, and you could hear that in my voice. And then also you have the time pressure of you're singing for 90 seconds and they're not turning and they're not turning and they're not turning.
Yeah, that's kind of some shit, man.
That would mess with my head.
Yeah, totally.
And your parents are in the other room watching with Carson Daly.
Oh yeah.
And you're like, and then you're stressing about, is this going to air on TV? Oh my gosh, everyone's going to see how bad I did. Like, I don't want. And luckily for me, my audition never aired.
It didn't, for
either show. But so, and then circling back to where we were talking about putting our, speaking our dreams and if you say it, it will come to you. A big dream of mine is to someday be on a late night talk show or Ellen, and be able to share my story about how I was turned down by Blake Shelton, Adam Levine, Christina Aguilera, Pharrell Williams, Harry Connick Jr., J-Lo, and Keith Urban.
Wow.
And somehow I still am able to be here today.
Yeah.
Because I think
that would be a beautiful moment.
It's going to be a beautiful moment because I think it's important for people to know that everyone can tell you no. But if you believe in yourself and you work hard, because I think a lot of people think that things are just going to be handed to you. Mm-hmm. But you have to bust your ass if you really want something to happen. And you can't just think other people are going to do it for you or it's just going to land in your lap because you put it out into the universe. Like, you have to act on it too.
That's great advice.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I can already see that definitely happening.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. I think, and you kind of spotted on something like the word no. Like, I just think like, when people hear the word no, I've heard it 1,000 times. Mm-hmm. Kevin's heard it 1,000 times. Like, our band has heard it 1,000 times. Where it's just like, man, it's all about how you react to that. And I think, no is a devastating thing. I'm sure that was very devastating not seeing a chair turn around. Okay, it really is. But with that though, you grow some kind of like internal armor. Right, especially as like an artist or a creator, where it's like, maybe you don't like me, maybe you don't like my shit right now, but as long as I keep doing this, man, someday you probably will. You probably will, and if you don't, fuck off. But you're not going to stop me,
right?
So I love Bomb Your Boundaries. To me, it really means a lot of taking that word no and just disintegrating it with your heart and say, fuck off. I can still do this. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Amen.
Yeah, absolutely. So take me kind of to present day, like where, so you're with MV2, what's kind of like on deck? What's coming next down the pipe for you?
So for me right now, MV2 picked up my final option for my deal, for my original deal. So what that means is I have another year with them writing songs and with them supporting my artist career. And a year from now, we'll decide if we want to renegotiate or if we're going to go our separate ways. But for right now, I am booking a lot of shows, going to be playing a lot of shows this summer, which I'm excited about. And I'm writing for my next project. And I believe we have secured a great producer for this project. But in terms of not,
right.
Knocking on wood.
I'm going to knock on wood
on wood.
and maybe not share the name so I don't look like a loser later if it doesn't pan out, but it's going to.
It's going to.
Yeah.
It will.
So I'm very excited and hopeful for what is to come. But all I know is that I'm writing the best songs I've ever written, and I feel like I really know who I am and what I want, and that's an exciting place to be.
Yeah, it feels like to me, just hearing your whole story, like everything has happened exactly the way it was supposed to. I mean, to just turn 25, like I know you said it was a big birthday, and it is definitely a big birthday, but like you got like a lot of time. And I think honestly, like you're positioned perfectly to be 25, to be in the position that you're at right now with the experience that you have. I mean, to knock that out of the park at like 26, 27, you're set up for a great long career. So I think
thank you. I sure hope so. And it's just, it's funny because, to me, it's such a big number, 25. You know what I mean? It's like, I just remember being a young adult, in high school and then into college, and seeing girls that I looked up to make it, and they were my age. And so it's like, in a way, I feel like I've grown up enough and I've matured enough, and like I've come to this point where now I really am ready. Because you always think you're ready. At 15, I thought I was ready. Are you kidding me?
Right,
no,
right.
like. What? and then, when I did The Voice, I thought I was ready. But I really feel like now I am being true to myself, and I'm able to advocate for myself more, because I think too, being a young woman in the music industry, and I know myself very well, I'm a people pleaser. And so I don't tend, I want to go with the flow, and I want to make sure everybody's happy. I don't want anyone to be upset with me. And if someone thinks it should be a certain way, and I value their opinion, then like that's what we're doing. Like my own thoughts or concerns, I didn't voice because I felt like they weren't valid, because I didn't know. And so now I know I still have a lot to learn yet in this whole thing, but I'm very confident in what I want and what I think is right. And I still take into consideration people that I value their opinion, and it means a lot to me. Like, I don't want people to think with me saying this that I'm like, it's my way or the highway. You know what I mean?
It doesn't come off like that at all.
But I don't feel like, I feel like I'm a strong, independent young woman now, and I'm not afraid to go against the grain because I don't want to upset someone. And I think that is an important lesson for anyone to learn, is that your opinion matters, and it is your career. And that is something that it has taken a while for me to really get through my head, is that it is my career, and ultimately I have the final say.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I was just it's a scary thing to talk to an elder and be like, I don't agree with that, and that's not me. Right, you just want to please everybody, and you don't want to be disrespectful. And so anyway,
yeah, when you're
clear,
that's first of all, that's amazing. When you're aligned with that vision and that creative integrity, it's not for other people to see. And that's something that we've talked a lot about, even just starting the company and everything. It's like, it doesn't have to make sense to anyone else, but when you're so convicted and when you can see it so clearly, that's when the real like magic starts to happen, because you're not seeking approval anymore. It's already connected inside. So if someone else doesn't get it, or if they're not on the same page, that's okay. It's up to you to control it and make it happen, because that vision was meant for you, not for them, and they'll see it eventually.
Absolutely,
for sure.
I think that's definitely something we push in our company is that authenticity and being true to yourself. And you just said, at 25, you're finally, with all your experiences in music or even in life, like, it's like you're kind of at this point right now where it's like, man, I'm in control of what I want to happen, and I have a voice, and I found that voice, and that's what we try to promote. That voice right there, that's what's going to get you to the high mountains, man. That's going to get you to the success. Not the agreeable person, not the person that's just trying to make everyone happy. No. That don't happen. It's what you want. And it's okay to be selfish about that too. I want to make that clear. It's okay to be selfish about your career because it's yours and it's your life. We get one time around in this world. It's okay to be selfish about it. Okay, because it's that important to you. So cradle it, man, and push it out there. Fuck everybody else.
Getting fired up. I like that. That's good stuff.
So Kev and I usually like around this point before we wrap up is to ask you a question. It's kind of the slogan for our company. And there's no right or wrong answer. We just like to kind of throw it out to you and just see what comes off the top of your head or what comes out of your heart. So what does Bomb Your Boundaries mean to you?
To me, Bomb Your Boundaries is more of a personal thing. Obviously, we've talked about my insecurity in this in our chat tonight, and it's just something that I struggle with, and anxiety is something that I didn't know I struggled with until recently. And so for me, it's just silencing those negative voices in my head that tell me I'm incapable, or that it'll never happen, or that I'm not worthy, and that I don't deserve these things that I have worked so hard for, and I'm going to continue working hard for. And it's a reminder too that no one else is going to do it for me. There are people that are going to help me along the way and that are going to be crucial to my journey, but I can never stop working hard, and I can never stop believing in myself if I want my dreams to come true. So I'm a big believer in what you guys are doing, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate you having me on here.
No, really, really appreciate you too, and that was beautiful. That's actually like the best answer I've heard on here.
Really?
I was,
Thank you.
that got to me just because I suffer with anxiety as well, and I know exactly what you're talking about, and what what it takes to kind of push through that. So, yeah, when those like self-imposed boundaries that are imagined start to come in,
Yeah.
Gotta bomb it.
Exactly. I think we tend to be our own worst enemy, which sucks because we deserve so much more than that. We should treat ourselves the way we treat other people, which is hopefully great.
Much better than that. Yeah.
Better than we treat ourselves, right?
Totally. Yeah. Well, wow, this is incredible. I really thank you for all this.
Thank you.
Yeah, where can people find you online? How do people connect with you? Run us down the list.
Probably the easiest way, you can just head on over to my website, noracollins.com, and there's links to all of my social media accounts, but it's pretty much just Nora Collins on everything. But yeah, I'd love to connect with you, so send me a message and say hi.
Awesome. Well, that was amazing. I really enjoyed the time today. I hope you guys did too. I know you got value out of that. We went through peaks and valleys, got deep, covered a lot of ground, got you some practical knowledge. So if you got value out of this, please head over to iTunes and rate and review. Helps us out a lot. Head on over to bombersandsleeves.com. Check out our merchandise. If you dig any of it, go ahead and get some for maybe you or a family member. It just supports this podcast. Even if you don't like it, thank you for listening to the podcast, because honestly, carrying out this mission through this podcast is the most important thing. So we dig the clothing side of it, but you know what? This is the big thing. So with that being said, please email this or DM it to someone that you think this episode could help, because there's a lot of powerful things in here. So I hope to just help us share it as much as we can. Steve?
Yeah, I just want to thank our very special guest and great friend, Miss Nora Collins. It's just, like I said before earlier, man, it's an honor to work with you as much as I do. It's just great to have. I mean, we became fast friends, man, and it's just, she's a wonderful person. And please, guys, do yourself the favor and look up some of her music. I mean, or go see a show. I promise you're going to love it. She's just absolutely amazing. It's been great having you on here. Thanks for sharing your story with everybody. And stay tuned for the next couple of podcasts. We've got some great ones coming up in the next few weeks. And don't forget, bomb your boundaries, baby.